Well, university football in Saskatchewan has been sidelined for this fall.
Fall sports are now being canceled.
All Canada West announced this morning it has officially canceled all fall sports for 2020.
After a lost season, the Canada West Conference is set to return to the gridiron. All 6 teams will compete in 6 games in 2021. This after the COVID-19 pandemic scrubbed the entire youth sports calendar. Now, those teams, of course, hope that it will culminate in a Hardy Cup championship after the Hardy Cup wasn't awarded for the first time since 1958. Now, you may say, that was very, very quiet in 2020, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The teams went through training camps. The coaches learned about new ways to evaluate their team as well as potential recruits, while volunteer coaches helped develop the new younger players. Now, following strict COVID protocols, all teams went through training camps, but during the lost season, it really had to play upon those veteran players, the ones who wanted to find ways to develop their game, to showcase it to a potential CFL opportunity. Having said all of that, the season is ready to go, and as we get set to kick off 2021, we have an opportunity to catch up with all 6 coaches across the Canada West Football Conference.
At the end of it, we've got to find that light. We've got some little milestones along the way. We've got to find that light. Okay, it's about being a team. And I think that us and our team and what we're going to do over these next month and a half is really going to define us moving ahead to 2021.
Coach Flory, how good is it to talk about getting on a football field? I remember when I was a kid, my mom would get me a new toy and I'd have to look at it and not touch it. Like, you're looking out your office window at new turf that you haven't been able to touch forever. Like, it just must be great to get on it.
Yeah, no, we are really excited. It has definitely been a long road and a long journey to get back to the place where we're back on the field, man. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, and back to competing.
So what's it like amongst your group? Because it's an interesting dynamic. You've got 2 recruiting classes. You've got some players that have been given a second life, if you will, after the ruling from youth sports. What's the dynamic in the room like?
Yeah, we've been training, back together for a while now. Luckily, the restrictions in Saskatchewan, allowed us as of, I think, June 1st or whatever, to get together as a team. So we've done a bunch of stuff, and it's been, everybody's excited, good to get back. And then, from a dynamic standpoint, you're right, is that we've got, 42, I think, new players to the team that haven't played a university football game yet. And other guys that just haven't been on the roster and that are moving up and going to be in positions to contribute on game day and stuff. So it's going to be interesting, it's a race, shortened season. It's all going to come and go so quickly, and we've just got to do our best to prepare the guys. We've got a great leadership core that is virtually intact from our 2019 season, which is key for continuity's sake.
So when you're preparing for the season, do you have to battle the unknown at all? And nobody knows what lies ahead.
Oh, 100%, Dave. I mean, man, when you look at it, like, the more I think about it, it's just how long we've been in our own little ecosystem. You know what I mean? And we've seen the outside world, but we don't know. We don't know what our competition's doing. I don't know what those other schools are doing. I don't know where they're at. I don't know who's returning. I don't know what they look like, how they've been training. You know what I mean? And we just don't know. We see our guys and we see what we've been doing. And it's not that we concern ourselves with everybody else, but the unknown part is going to the game, on a normal, 8-12 month season where you've got that off season, you can see where people are at from a developmental standpoint, and you've got, more known knowns. Now we have so many unknowns. I think everybody does across the board. So the beginning of the season it's going to be interesting just to see how things start. And trust me, there's going to be in my opinion, probably a pretty big swing from the start of the season through the end of the season, just how teams start to figure themselves out and figure each other out.
You talk about the unknowns, and the unknown to me is your secondary, right? You've got Haggerty and Lacombo, both have made the jump to the Canadian Football League. Is that one of the unknowns that maybe is worrisome to you?
You bring up a great point. Of any other position group, we turned over the most starters in our secondary. 3 out of 6 guys, 2 onto the CFL and 1 to graduation in Bo Lewis. So, yeah, you can look at it as a point of concern, but you can also look at the fact that we added Colton Holmes, a CJFL, All-Canadian, a guy that's been with the Riders numerous couple training camps and as well as on practice practice squad with the Riders for a whole summer. So, and then adding Finn Marcotte-Cribb as well, a 2-year starter at the CJFL level. He's going to be first year with us, but he's got meaningful snaps, and he's 3 years out of high school. So you look at those guys, and then also coming up the development of our guys within our ranks that we've had on our roster for 2, 3, 4 years. That yeah, I mean, that's one of the, you're right though, Dave, from an unknown standpoint, is that those guys haven't played university football games yet, and they'll get acclimatized quickly. But area concern, I wouldn't say that. It was more of opportunity. You know what I mean?
Mentally or physically, which is harder, getting your team prepared for this season? Because again, game speed is game speed. You know that. You can see that in the Canadian Football League. But again, there are so many things mentally when it comes to not just football, but there's school, there's life, there's everything that you throw into that mix.
Yeah, I think that both have their challenges. I think physically, though, with the time off, there's no doubt we're as big and as strong as we've ever been. How well we move and how well we translate down on the football field into a game situation is yet to be seen, because we haven't played a game. So that non-conference game for us this year is going to be really big versus Manitoba, just to go through that preparation stage and actually going through the introduction and the warm-up and everything, that the emotions and the highs and lows and the anxiety that goes into preparing for a game. And then obviously on the mental side of things, talk about a little bit of that anxiety level, but and then back into school. I mean, most of our guys are going to have, most of their classes are going to be in person again as we transition back as an institution. Living on their own, the guys are moving away, and that schedule of football on a daily basis, and the intensity of that, and being able to manage that, and training camp and what that looks like. So there's challenges. There's no doubt on both sides of that spectrum, or that coin.
I was worried you were going to get into cooking classes or something when you're worried about guys and what they're going to prepare for meals. That's not your job, is it?
No, I got enough stuff to worry about. No, that ain't my wheelhouse.
Coach Flory, wish you all the best this season. Thanks for your time today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks, Dave.
We're going to run tied R seam. Okay, where we're going to throw the seam, a bender to R. Okay, then we're going to throw the late dig to Z.
Coach McConkey, things are looking good in Regina. How you been?
Things are good. Yeah, we're getting rolling here and excited for the season.
What's the room like with your players getting set for a season as we start to ramp up towards kickoff here in September?
It's finally here. It's been such a long year off for these guys. I know we were able to practice and train, but you can only do that for so long. Everyone wants games. Everyone wants to compete against the top programs in Can West. And yeah, we're just excited to get back on the field and playing some games in September here.
Any reservations at all that you feel amongst your group? Because we still are in the unknown when it comes to COVID.
For sure. Yeah. Day one of meetings with our guys, I told them I'd never take a practice for granted. And I think the second day it was absolutely dumping, but we were still out there practicing. And again, I loved it. Like I said, I'll never take a practice for granted after having it taken away. And again, we're not taking anything for granted. We're just focusing on what we can control. I know there's so many unknowns still with COVID and what the protocols are going to be during the game. Who knows what happens during the season, if there's an outbreak on a team or whatever it may look like. But our guys are ready for it. They're prepped for it. And yeah, we're just excited to keep going day by day and control what we can control.
Evaluation versus preparation. You've got 2 recruiting classes that are there. You've got some established veterans. What is the balance that you try to strike?
Yeah, for sure. It's a tough one. We got lots of good players in our program, lots of guys competing for starting spots, backup spots, special teams, and everything. So we're just kind of seeing where the chips fall, essentially. We're practicing, we're grading our guys. Guys are competing all the time, even in some of our lighter practices. So we'll see who comes out on top, but I know all of our guys are putting their best foot forward, and it's a very competitive atmosphere out here, which is awesome. It's I can say we haven't had that in the last couple of years in some spots, but now the depth we have is really deep at all positions. So we're excited to see how it unfolds in training camp and as we head into week 1.
You still have the interim head coach tag on your title. Are you being evaluated this season too?
That's a good question. I think so. But at the end of the day, what I've been told is they're going to open it up for application after the season, which I'm 100% good with. I want to apply for it. I want to earn it. I never want anyone to say, oh, they just gave it to him because it was easy because he was just there. I want to go up against the best and I want to compete for it. And I think I have the upper hand. This is essentially an interview process starting right now, and it has been during COVID. And I think I've done a great job so far. I just got to keep keep my feet under me, keep rolling with the team, and I think we're heading in the upright direction.
Does that affect the recruiting process at all?
It has a little bit for sure, but what I've been told is I'm guaranteed to be the offensive coordinator back in my old role if someone else comes in and becomes the head coach. So either way, I'm still here, whether it's the head coach or the offensive coordinator role. So I'll still be here either way. So that's what I've been telling players and their parents. And there's some that just have some questions about it, but some players, it doesn't seem to matter at all.
If I may, being at the University of Regina, you may want to remove that you like the Calgary Stampeders from your Facebook profile.
Is that, yeah, I didn't even know that's on there. That's good. I just like them because my good friend Mark Mueller is the quarterback coach there. Grew up as a Stamps fan in Calgary, so I'll have to. I didn't know that was on there. I'll have to go on there and delete it. I'll just put a fan of Mark Mueller. I'll change it.
That's right. You don't have to convince me at all, but you've got another good quarterback that you're hanging around with, Noah Picton, and you do have some young quarterbacks, and I'm not sure what you're going to look for under center in week number 1, but what has Noah provided them?
Yeah, he's outstanding. He's unbelievable. He's been working with us. He's kind of taken a bit of a backseat this year. He's kind of helping out like in an assistant role just because he's got some career goals that he wants to do, doing his CFA. But all last year, Noah was out here helping him with Frankie, and it's a strong group. And I can honestly say I think we got the best quarterback room in all of youth sports. Josh Donnelly was a young guy in 2019. He led Canada, or he led youth sports in passing yards per game, every game that he started. I know one game he was on as a backup, just as an emergency guy. So that kind of skewed his stats down a little bit, but he's outstanding. And then we bring in an older guy like Sawyer Bittner, who did really well when he was in Ottawa with the GGs and did really well in the OUA. So, and then again, we got 2 other guys that can definitely step up and win us some games. Young guy, Noah Pelche, who was our 2022 recruiting class, Team Canada quarterback from Regina, and Bryden O'Flaherty from Calgary. He's very smart, one of the smartest guys on the team. I'm comfortable with all 4 of those guys taking snaps behind center, and I think they'll all put us in a chance to win a game.
Okay, before I let you go, I got to ask one more question about your special teams. Which would you prefer Rylan Kleider, your kicker, to do? Kick it through the uprights or draw to the button to win because he's the junior provincial curling champion?
Yeah, he's a multi-sport athlete, and I don't know, he's great at both of them. And even we did some team building last night. We went mini golfing with the guys, and he's a good mini golfer too. So you can add that to his athleticism report on Wikipedia.
Sorry, I'm just writing this down. You just called your kicker an athlete. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, for sure.
Coach, thanks so much for this.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good rest tonight. Have a good meal. Put your feet up, relax, and let's have a lot of fun tomorrow. Let's have a great day.
Let's go, baby.
All right, Adam, break them down.
Let's go, fellas. Hey, player meeting. When's our player meeting?
After dinner?
All right, player meeting after dinner. Hey, man.
After dinner.
Let's go. One more sleep, baby. But we worked all off season. Okay, let's go get it done. Dinos on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Dinos! Yes, sir.
Woo! Coming off a lost season, Coach Harris, right after an unforgettable season where you win the Vanier Cup. Tell me a little bit about what the preparation going into 2021 has been like, because you've been in that situation coming off a championship before, but this is a lot different.
It's definitely different, and it's been a real challenge. We've lost a lot of guys to the CFL that we would have had in 2020, but we're happy for those guys to be able to live their dreams and go that way. So a lot of organization just to prep to get ready for practices this year and getting ready for school. It's just a different world out there for everybody.
You talk about it, it's a succession plan that you guys have been very successful with at the University of Calgary. Is there ever any bitterness in the back of your mind? Like, geez, I had this all planned out so that these guys were going to be my guys going into 2020, and you don't get a chance to see that come to fruition.
Well, it's more disappointment than bitterness. I don't think you want to be bitter about things. That's just a path to disaster. So we stay optimistic, and we continue to do the things that we've done in the past and work towards our goals for the 2021 season. We're disappointed. We would have had a majority of our team back from 2019 to play that 2020 season, and I liked our chances of having a great run at it, but nothing's a guarantee, and we'll just never know now, and we'll move on to the 2021 season and look forward to return to play and games coming up later here in September.
Returning to play, was it difficult at all in keeping players within the program? Obviously, there were some guys on your roster that would have had an opportunity to look NCAA, for example, or maybe they were graduating and had an opportunity to move on professionally. Was that a challenge at all?
Well, it's always a challenge in our program. The good news, bad news is a lot of our guys do go to the CFL, and we know we're going to lose. And so that's something that I always anticipate and try to build into our recruiting, who we're going to need to replace and what style of player we're going to need to play in our system.
Obviously, one spot that you've had continuity in is in your quarterback spot. Year after year, you always seem to have that next guy up. And for a time there, I felt horrible for Josiah Joseph that, he put in his time and wasn't going to get that chance to be the guy. Now, is this his opportunity?
Yeah, it definitely is. And he's excited. He's been waiting a long time for this. I remember recruiting him out of Kelowna, playing with the Okanagan Sun, and had great hopes for him and still do. And he's been a great leader in our program, even though he's served in a backup role through most of his career. And it would have been a great disappointment had he not been able to play this senior season.
So tell me a little bit, Coach. There are so many unknowns this year, and I'm not even talking about the pandemic anymore. I'm talking about the other programs, the other teams that you're going to be facing. That must be a unique challenge.
It is. We're trying to anticipate a little bit who might be returning to other programs like us. They've lost some players to the CFL or to graduation or to other reasons. So that's the building block. That's the challenge for all the teams. Not really knowing our opponents as well as maybe we do in the past, but we'll get to know each other really well very quickly here.
Obviously, a lot of that comes into mental preparation, Coach. This year, when you're preparing your team mentally, obviously you have to worry about game plans, X's and O's, and all that fun stuff. Mentally, though, do you have to prepare your athletes for what the world looks like with COVID beyond your dressing room walls?
Well, there's definitely been discussions around that and what needs to take place and what is campus life going to look like with a lot of new restrictions coming about with the variants and that type of thing, and just how to create the balance between school and football. There's a lot on a young man's plate, and we definitely have more younger athletes in our program than we've had in a long time. So we've been down this path before, and I think we know how to handle it. So we look forward to these young athletes that have joined our program the last 2 years getting an opportunity to show what they can do as well.
Coach, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. All the best in this upcoming season on the field.
Appreciate it. Look forward to the games here coming up soon. So take care.
Great effort the last few months. This group particularly, and some of the guys that couldn't be here tonight, but you guys showed up. We got better, right? We got better in a tough year. And that's what we got to do. We got to continue to work on our individual improvement and focus on spring football.
You know what? We're smiles because we're talking football. How great is it to be able to talk about a season that's just around the corner?
You know what? I'm fired up. This game has managed to keep me young for 30 years, and I'm looking forward to getting out on the field. Being active with the players, encouraging our young men to be at their best, and finally to compete. I miss the competitive element a lot. My last year in 2019 was one of the most difficult of my career, and I'm looking forward to getting out here, showing that we've improved as a program, playing the game the way it's supposed to be, and allowing these young men to once again benefit from everything that football brings them.
You said 2019, one of the most difficult of your careers. So what did the last layoff do for that? Because there's obviously a lot of time where you can address things, but there's also a lot of time where you can obsess about things.
I'll tell you what it did. It prolonged it 18 months. That's what it did. That wasn't, it was tough, man. You're used to being in the hunt. For 30 years, I've been in the hunt, and then to, go through a year that was certainly not unexpected, but we made investments in 2019 that I felt would give us an edge in 2020. And when 2020 didn't come around, it prolonged everything. So again, you lose a little patience, you're eager, and what I've tried to have done, or what I've meant to do in this program, is just create that energy. Make sure that my guys realize that, okay, it's go time now. Let's get it done. We've waited a long time for this. Let's go and take our best step, or put our best foot forward and compete as fully as possible.
From the outside in, a lot of teaching had to be done at your quarterback position in 2019. You've got a young man by the name of Garrett Rooker who's joined the program. What can we expect under center? Do we know who to expect under center in week one?
No, honestly, I would say no, you don't as of yet, but the Rooker kid's a good one. As I mentioned earlier, he's played at a high level of football, big dual sport athlete. He's a basketball player, football player, very good with his feet, can make all the throws, and cognitively is very sharp. I described him athletically as a young man I had a decade ago in Calgary, Eric Dulesky, who was rookie year in the country. Yeah. Cognitively, though, this kid is better. He knows what he needs to do as a quarterback, and I'm excited to see his progression in the next 5 years.
Okay, so how do you get your team from where you're at now to be ready to take a kickoff and get this season going?
A lot of the first few weeks are going to be determined on knowing your assignments and on the effort you can put forward. And that's where I've been focusing probably the last 3 months, on knowing your opponent, knowing your assignments, and making sure that mentally we're prepared to put forth every effort we can to win that particular play, and break it down to play by play. And I'm hoping that, coming into week one, we're going to be healthy. That's I think a concern for every coach in the country. But we've got to manage. We've got to do a good job managing our kids and making sure that when that kickoff happens, we're excited, we're focused, and we know what we're doing.
Coach, I can feel your enthusiasm from here. Heck, you could probably go and take that kickoff. You're looking so good. Can't wait to see you on the sideline this season.
Hey, guys, thanks for the opportunity, man. Promoting this game is something I think we all need to do a better job with. It's a great tool, and I'm glad to have it back.
We're gaining horizontal width to make sure we're cutting a guy off, okay? Keeping our pads down. Here we go.
Coach, you're getting good at Zoom meetings through this pandemic, setting up your phone. I don't even want to know what you put it on. You're like a seasoned pro now, which maybe is unfortunate, huh?
Yeah, it's been a long year with trying to figure out all this AV stuff, but it's luckily it's all coming to an end here, hopefully.
Yeah, no doubt. How good is it to get people back in person? You mentioned that, you get an opportunity to see the kids and connect with the kids on your team again. That's just got to be maybe the best part about getting training camp and closer to game action.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I think for the kids here. Like, they're all such social creatures, right? And taking away the interaction with their teammates, and taking away the locker room, and taking away meeting rooms and all those things. Like, you can do Zoom meetings, you can go up to practice for an hour because it's relatively safe to be doing that. But, when you take away all those interactions that the kids sort of have taken for granted for all these years, it does have an impact on guys. And I think that's one of the biggest it's one of the biggest challenges through this whole 18 months we've been through, is the kids have had to really, really chew through a very sort of isolated experience. And I think it's like they see the light at the end of the tunnel now, but it's been tough on a lot of guys.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and the things that were taken away from the athletes. Now, the academics obviously were not, but how big of a challenge was it to balance academics, football, and just life in general through a pandemic at the University of Alberta?
Yeah, I think we had an in-person study hall for most of last year. So for those first year guys, and we have our in-person study hall again this year. So we have a big learning team that works with our guys. And I think the academic success rate for us was very, very high during this period. But again, it's the mental toll it takes on kids, right? Like that it's funny, the study hall became one of the more popular things we had going just because they were actually in the same room with some other guys. And that's just the ability to socialize and to talk and to connect, I think was a real bonus for the kids in that program. So like the success academically has been there. It's just, again, like the toll on them from a mental health standpoint, I think is the biggest challenge.
How is the team coming together? In my opinion, I thought 2019 was a big step for your program, and the fact that, you really came to it down the stretch. That playoff game in Saskatchewan, I thought, was a real big step for your program with lots of momentum going into the off season, but then you have to put things on pause. How are things coming together?
Yeah, you know what? We got everybody back. Like I said earlier with you, like all of our kids a lot of our kids deferred their drafts. They wanted to come back and play. We got good players at every position, and they're veteran, older players. So that's always a good thing. Like I know when I came here initially as the head coach, we didn't have any older players really. There were very, very few. And we have some good athletes that have grown to maturity now and are ready to go. So we feel good about the season coming up. The alarming part for me is I have no idea what anybody else has. So when you start looking at planning around the conference, everybody's going to be good, but you just don't know. You don't know who's back, who's not back. Like it's going to be a very, very interesting first few games.
Has the depth chart been affected? Because year to year, obviously, you've only got one recruiting class that you go ahead and you insert into your lineup to fill holes or to bolster depth. You got Brad Lonhart, who had I thought, a terrific step forward season as your quarterback. You got Jonathan Rosary, who perhaps can come back from an injury. Does your depth chart get affected by the insertion of two recruiting classes and younger players pushing older guys for playing time?
Yeah, you certainly hope so, right? You're hoping that those young kids you bring in can compete. It's really, really tough in Canada West. It's a grown man's conference. So a lot of the guys in the field are 22, 23, 24 years old, right? So for a high school kid to be able to come in and play, he's got to be really, really talented anywhere in Canada West. So like from our standpoint, we have a lot of returning players. We have a lot of good kids coming back with experience, but we have had, we've been at the top of the nation in recruiting classes the last couple of years. So those kids that have come in are pushing, and they are, some of them are ready to play.
Well, we look forward to seeing you on a sideline where you belong, Coach. I can't wait to get this season kicked off.
Yeah, me too. Can't wait. It's been too long.
Head coach Brian Dobie of the University of Manitoba Bisons. It's nice to see a face on a screen that isn't like some kind of animated Netflix thing. It's awesome to see you and talk football. How are things?
Things are really great, especially now that we've started back up again and fighting through the things that we've been fighting through for almost 2 years now. But for sure, the light at the end of the tunnel is beaming, brightly. We're excited to be back on the field.
We talked a little bit about, how football, perhaps during the pandemic, this was a bit of a distraction, right? An opportunity for student athletes to find some way of not thinking about what was happening in the world. Is it different reeling them in to think this is your focal point and is the world now again?
Yeah, it's that whole process, that whole time, almost 2 years. I mean, that's how we're describing it. 2 years has been so unbelievably unique and challenging and interesting for all of us, not just football, for all of us, of course. And when you start getting specific about, your own little world, for us, that's Bison football. We're Canada West, or U Sports. I think we're all in the same boat. Reeling them in, as you say, it's been real easy to reel them in. They're chomping at the bit and can't wait to move forward. They've been as soon as the weather got warm here in Manitoba and we were able to do anything on a field without being in isolation, our guys have been out there. It's on their own for the most part. It's been great.
You've got a heck of a leadership group with Des Catelier. I look to him as being the ultimate leader in Manitoba. But what does your leadership group now mean coming out of this pandemic to the players, not only for their physical well-being and acclimatizing them to your culture, but also making sure that mentally they're in the right spot?
Perspective, absolutely. I'm so glad you're asking me this question. And you're right. In my whole career, I mean, this is my 26th or 27th season here as head coach. We've had some great quarterbacks, over the years, for sure. There's been no greater leader than SaskTel, and of course a group that surrounds him. But wow. So I think going back to the first word I said is perspective. I think that's what's become important. It goes back to that old adage. You don't know what you're missing till it's gone.
How do you build a team for 2021 after a lost season? You've got 2 recruiting class. You had players that obviously could not put their life on hold and had to move on. How do you build a team?
Yeah, that's real interesting. I mean, for sure, in some cases, you know what you've got coming back. We mentioned SaskTel. I mean, he's our going into his 5th and final year as a quarterback. So we have certain players in place. But you're right, the 2 cohort recruiting group coming in, and literally yesterday in practice, one of our veteran players came up and put his arm around my shoulder and, "Hey, coach, pretty sweet, huh?" Just commenting on how practice was going.
Yeah.
And I went, "Absolutely." And he said, "Coach, what's really interesting is just over the last couple of days, the young kids, we didn't know their names, which is almost pretty much half our football team." He goes, "It doesn't feel like a separation anymore. It just feels like we're all Bisons. We all know each other. We're getting to know each other better. It's coach, the locker room has never been better." I thought that really summed it up. I thought that summed up the start we're having. So yeah, I think you have to work through cultural obstacles if they're there. I think you have to build your team identity, its signature. You have to establish it, and on a technical or practical basis, you got to start over again. It's at ground zero, teaching systems and X's and O's, and lastly, finding out what those big holes are to fill. In our case, it's our offensive line. It's going to be an adventure.
I can feel the excitement and enthusiasm. I can't wait to see it on the sideline. Coach Dobie, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to kickoff of the 2021 season.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Much appreciated. See you guys soon.
There are 11 games on this year's Canada West Football Showcase, and you can watch them all on maxTV. We'll cap the season off with both semifinals and, of course, the 84th Hardy Cup. Join us for a season of Canada West football on maxTV.
If you have program ideas that you'd like to see on maxTV Local, email us at max.local@sasktel.com.